for another book review. Today we are talking about this one. This is Witchcraft, A Graphic History, Stories of Wise Women, Healers, and Magic. We'll get to this, but potentially by Lindsay, Squire, and I'm guessing illustrated by Lisa Salzy, but we'll get there. This is the most misleading title you would ever expect. And I'm not the only one. I went to the other reviews just to make sure it's not being too spicy, but no, everyone agrees, no. This is not at all what the title says. At all. The title is so misleading. The publishing house should be ashamed. They usually are the ones to pick the title, and so they flopped this hard, and I will not recommend it because of that alone. It's such a misleading title and subtitle. This is not a graphic history at all, unless you would consider, like, remember, I don't think they do it as much nowadays, but like us who were like babies and growing up in like the 90s, early 2000s, so tail end of millennials, beginning of Gen Z, all of us, the Zennials basically, yeah, remember when we used to have to watch like the Christopher Columbus cartoons, especially around this time of the year? Yeah, technically kind of history, technically also really fabricated, really stretching that truth. Or Disney, where you have Pocahontas, or you have like Hercules, which I know is mispronounced, but whatever. Like, those are technically part of the stories, but like mostly fiction. That's this, and it's weird. So it attempts to tell a not at all real story at all, vaguely kinda based off of some history, kinda. Basically, it's about this witch from like the 1700s called Biddy, which is a fun name, like Biddy Early, really weird name. And she was a witch, but most likely from what I can find, and knowing history, did not call herself as such, and would have been quite offended, actually, if you had called her that. She was accused, and I think she went to trial for witchcraft back in the day, because again, it's like the 1700s, I think it was. And so, like, the witchcraft laws were still totally a thing. But they had been revised. Instead of death penalty for most places, it had been changed over to, like, imprisonment and or fines. But still very illegal. And this book follows an entirely fictional story in which the author, puts her childhood self as the apprentice to this girl who's, I would, again, most people would agree, people of those times did not call themselves witches, but in this book does. And then also shares a lot of modern beliefs and modern terms, hedge witch, green witch, you know, like, stuff they would have never used in that time frame is just included in here. And it is a graphic novel, which is already not my favorite. And you have pages like, you know, this, where it's just really random info pages. So it's obviously aimed more at kids, because it explains divas, dryads, which I can't not think of Baldur's Gate 3 anymore, merfolk, kelpies, banshees, and it has these teeny tiny little blobby blobs about it. But for the most part, it is like this. And this is supposed to be Biddy, this is Lindsay, and it's a graphic novel. And it tells the story of how she decides to go bother this lady and to be like, oh my god, you're a witch, and stutters so much in the beginning, it annoys me to the highest of degree. Because if you're gonna have a character stutter, make it a full stutter all the time when it's super not convenient, or just not at all, really. Like maybe one or two, but if it's like repeatedly, no, absolutely not. But anyways, that's personal preference. But it tells the story of her meeting this lady and then just being the usual annoying kid that's like, you gotta train me, I want to learn everything, and it's just bothering this lady. And then she's like, whatever, I guess you can be my apprentice, and teaches her things. And then, oh my god, the Christians freak out because witchcraft, and then nothing happens with that. They never actually say what happens, because why would they? And then in the end, she's a grown-up and then is also a witch and is so excited to have her own apprentice someday. That's the story. Sorry to spoil it, but what? Gave it a 3. It's meh. Like, is it so terrible I would never read to my children? No. If I need more witchy books for them, maybe. But also, it's the same thing of if you show your kids Pocahontas, the cartoon, and then you're like, but also we're gonna have a real fun conversation about how much all of that's wrong. Same with like Columbus. Again, I don't know that it's taught as much anymore, but I remember as a kid and then becoming a teenager and learning the truth, and you're like, where was all this information? What? Because that's what's gonna happen with this book. Like, I feel like you're gonna have to have like a sub lesson plan ready to go to explain things, or be like, just remember, kids, it's so loosely based on history. Super loose, because like it's a fictional story. But I mentioned this is the only specific thing I wanted to go into for this book, because why was this a thing? So as I mentioned, this is very much, this is the thing, right? It's just a graphic novel. But look at all these names over here. Why is all of this a thing? So we have the text by Lindsay. That checks. She's the main character. Sure. Illustrations by Lisa, as I assumed from the cover. That's usually how it goes. Kids' books are going to have author and illustrator. Even with like tarot, sometimes they'll put both. But then down here, you have edited by, okay, whatever. Screenplay adaptation by. What do you mean screenplay adaptation? For a comic book kind of thing, graphic novel, whatever this would be classified as. A picture book, glorified picture book. Why is there a screenplay adaptation? I don't understand. Like, why? She wrote it. She wrote it. What is your role? And I've tried to look it up, but Google's AI sucks so bad that trying to look up anything is truly a nightmare and a half anymore. So like, at most I could find is that it's usually, if it's a converted font type thing, right? Like, not actually font, but converting the core things, where you would take like Of Mice and Men, and it's a novel, and then you turn it into a screenplay thing to be used as like the script they would use to study to do the like actual theater things. But why is that here? Did she not actually write, did she write it as a story? I can't find a whole lot. Why is this here? And then continuing, why is there translation by? Why is that here? From what I can find, Lindsay, totally English speaking. Absolutely English speaking. Why is there a translator? What do you mean? This is a book, obviously I am not that good in any other language. To read in another language, it's English. She seems English. She doesn't say that it was published under another language, because sometimes you'll have that, like, published as blah, 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 in, like, Italian or in German or whatever. It'll tell you what it is in another language, and then that would make sense to be, like, translated by this person, because that's a lot of work. But no, it's not there. Why is it there? I have a lot of questions that were really not answered, and I don't think I'll ever have an answer, because why? Why was that a thing? I would recommend this if you have elementary school kids who are really just wanting a fantastical, super loosely based historical fantasy on witchcraft, where the witches are not the bad guys, and in fact it's the, like, the Christians, the village kind of turning against the witch, and you're like, oh my god, you're an idiot, like, why are you doing that? Like, they're just trying to help people, and like, especially in those times, like, they are pretty close to the doctor, if we're being honest. If you have not listened to Everything is Tuberculosis, do that. It talks about that in a roundabout way, because, like, yeah, science was a hot mess express for a long time. So yeah, the witches probably did know more, because herbs can help a little bit. Just remember, it's 21st century, and we do, in fact, know more than most plants. So it's, yeah. But that said, I feel like this is one of those books you could potentially give your kid if you're wanting to make sure you have a discussion about how this is, again, loosely based on history and not actual history. Again, like Pocahontas from Disney, versus when you learn actually about her and you're like, what? And you're like, set with it. There's a few key points, but a whole lot of fiction in between, and that is this book. As for like a story, I mean, it's not bad. It's a little cringe as an adult, if I'm being honest, but I did have to acknowledge, that's why I left it as high as I did, because I know that I am not the intended audience, and sometimes going back into kid literature, you just cringe hardcore, because I'm bouncing between this and Everything is Tuberculosis, so like, very different vibes, because like, that one's very like, ah, the world, wow, And then this is over here like, you're a witch. And you're like, oh my god. So anyways, I would love to know your thoughts on this one in the comments down below. A huge thank you to my patrons. If you'd like to support me, get access to exclusive stuff. It's where I'll be talking about everything is tuberculosis, probably in the next week or two. I'm trying to get through it. It's a surprisingly long book and I don't want to miss out. I don't want to, like some of the books I'll listen on like the higher speed to just get through it. I can't with this one because it's so good, and it's John Green and I could just listen to him for hours, and I need him to write all of the books because he's a really good writer. It's a really, really, really interesting book. Really depressing, by the way, but also really interesting. So I'm only about, maybe I think I've hit the halfway point now, but yeah, it's getting there. But anyways, I talk about all sorts of books over there on Patreon, and if you want to buy my books, there's linked down below. And until next time, thank you so much for coming along, and I'll see you all next time for another book review.